He moved like a shadow, silent, cold, calculated. A man who slipped into homes like he belonged there, a man who breathed fear into entire neighborhoods. California had seen killers before, but nothing like him. Cops didn't know his name, didn't know his face, didn't even know what to call him. But they knew one thing. Wherever he went, terror followed. It started with small stuff. Break-ins, stolen items, weird trespassing. Homes ransacked like someone was studying every detail of the families who lived there. Drawers pulled out, clothes scattered. But cash, jewelry, and obvious valuables, untouched. It wasn't about money. It was about control, domination, a predator learning the terrain. People would come home and instantly feel something wrong in the air. A window slightly open, a picture frame moved, a footprint in the mud that didn't match anyone. And nobody knew that the man responsible was already watching them. Again, from the dark. Soon his crimes escalated. What started as stalking turned into attacks. Women alone at home, couples sleeping in their beds, teenagers, newlyweds, suburban families who thought their neighborhoods were safe. He hit without warning. No pattern the police could decipher. He would creep into a house while everyone slept, cut phone lines, study the hallways, wait in the shadows. And when the moment was right, he made his move. Women reported the same terrifying feeling, waking up to the sound of someone breathing, opening their eyes and seeing a masked man standing over them. A man with cold, dead eyes peeking through tiny slits. A man holding a flashlight right in their face, like he enjoyed watching fear bloom. He tied couples up, separating husbands from wives, whispering things like he already knew them, like he'd been in their home before. Because he had. He'd spend hours inside, not minutes, hours, roaming through their kitchens, eating their food, taking tiny objects as trophies, coins, photographs, rings. Nothing expensive, just pieces of their lives. Police started calling him the East Area Rapist, but he wasn't done evolving. In Southern California, the attacks turned deadly. People were found murdered in their own homes, couples slaughtered, beds soaked in blood, and the killer vanished into the night every single time. No fingerprints, no hair, no witnesses, just an enemy nobody could see. Cops believed they were chasing multiple offenders. The MO kept shifting, the locations kept changing, the level of violence kept rising. But it was one man, one mind, one monster. He became the original Night Stalker, then the Visalia Ransacker, and eventually, the Golden State Killer. Because his terror touched the entire state, he taunted police. He called his victims, sometimes years later, just breathing on the line, just letting them know he was still out there, still alive, still watching. Detectives were losing sleep. Families were moving away. People were buying guard dogs, weapons, alarm systems. Husbands slept light. Wives checked doors twice. Kids kept the hallway lights on. Everyone felt the same fear. He could be anywhere. For decades, detectives chased dead ends. Crime scenes turned cold. Evidence got stored in dusty boxes. And the man himself? He disappeared, like he'd never existed. But trauma has a long memory. Victims never forgot, cops never gave up, and DNA never lies. Years passed, then decades. But one detective had an idea, a wild one. Use genealogy databases, the same ones people use to find distant cousins, and match the killer's DNA with family trees across America. Little by little, the tree narrowed. Branches got eliminated. Relatives got tracked. And the circle closed around one man, a former cop, a family man, a guy who blended in so well nobody would ever suspect him. Joseph James DeAngelo. Detectives watched him, followed him, studied him just like he used to study his victims. And then they got lucky. He tossed a piece of trash, a tissue. Detectives picked it up. ran the DNA, and the results hit like thunder. It matched perfectly. When officers approached his home, he didn't fight, didn't run, didn't deny it. He just muttered one chilling line under his breath, like the monster inside him was annoyed he'd been caught. I guess I did all that. He was in his 70s, old, frailer, but the evil inside him, still there, still visible, still cold. Courtrooms filled with survivors, women who had once been teenagers, couples who had once been newlyweds, people who lived years in fear, thinking the killer would come back. They faced him, they told their stories, and he sat there, blank-faced, emotionless, the same dead stare he'd always had. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, not because he deserved to grow old behind bars, but because death would have been too easy, too quick, too painless for a man who created so much suffering. California slept a little easier after that, but the scars he left never disappeared. Entire communities got shaped by his darkness. Generations learned to lock doors, install alarms, be more cautious. Because of him, he wasn't just a killer. He was fear in human form. A man who turned bedrooms into battlefields. A man who weaponized silence. A man who hid among ordinary life, pretending to be normal while carrying a monster inside. He believed he would never be caught. He believed he was smarter than everyone. He believed the shadows would always protect him. But DNA doesn't forget. Victims don't forget. And justice, even if late, is still justice. The Golden State Killer finally lost the one thing he valued most: control. And after 4 decades of terror, California finally breathed again.